So hello everyone, and welcome to Art Salon. Art Salon is going on for 7.5 years, I think. It's what I've been devoting my life to for the last 7 years. I love putting these events together. I tend to look for people who are socially engaged. It's my own bias. And who are doing things that are aesthetically wonderful, but also have some social context to them. And along the way, I met Khaulah Naima Nuruddin, who is doing some wonderful, wonderful work in a lot of different media. I think she's primarily a painter, but her work has become a lot of drawing, a lot of ceramic work, and in the most recent work that I've seen of hers, it also included installation and body casting and a whole lot of different things, all built around the theme of Black women and the lives that Black women live and the kinds of particular challenges, stresses, laborious work that traditionally has been done by Black women. And I think it's fascinating work. It's very beautiful work. I just on Sunday saw the closing of her show down in North Miami that she called Not for Sale, Not Today. And seeing the work up close and hearing her explanation of it was absolutely fascinating. So welcome. Oh, and Khaulah has a bachelor's degree from the University of South Florida and a master's degree from Florida Atlantic University. And she is the exhibition manager and curator at the Spady Museum for African American Art, which I've been to, I think, twice for exhibitions, and they were wonderful, really, really wonderful works. But there's a new show pretty frequently, and she is the person in charge of that. And I highly recommend it. It's a very lovely, old, historical house in Delray Beach, and it's been turned into a wonderful space. So this is Khaulah Naima Nuruddin. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, and thank you, Ellie, for forcing Jerry to drive you up and down the road and making this possible. It's a really wonderful thing. So I love the salon, and I should get a Jerry to drive me up here, up and down, right? So I appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me. So what I'd like to do is start off by, well, not start off. I'd like for this whole conversation to be about things that you won't see. I want you to learn something special about me, which is essentially my history, and essentially all the things you wouldn't know from looking at the work I make. So I'd like to first tell you something that I just learned today. So today has been a very bizarre day. So today, someone told me that someone else asked her if she knew me. And she said, oh yes, I know Khaulah. And then she said, Khaulah, she's hilarious. She's just hilarious. She said, but I don't know. And she's just like burning fury on the inside. I said, what? Burning fury? Like, why would I be that way? And maybe it's that whole thing about being an angry Black woman that is out there, right? So maybe I am burning fury on the inside, and maybe it's starting to come out a little bit. Okay, so let's talk about it. So layers upon layers, scratching into being. What my current work is about, it's about the scratching that Black women do. And when I talk about scratching, it's all about this labor that goes above and beyond any labor you would have to do if you were not Black, any labor you would have to do if you're not a woman. And when we talk about intersectionality, it's about very specifically being a Black woman. But then there are all of these other things you have to navigate. And in my case, I have to navigate being a homosexual, right? So then there's that. And as a lesbian, I'm always coming out. I mean, you can see right away I'm Black, right? Boom, handled, right? But then, people ask me, where are you from? No, really, where are you from? Where are your parents from? Where's your family from? And all of this conversation is trying to put me in a lane. And all of these lanes that's what we talk about when we're talking about intersectionality. All of these lanes for a Black woman, they're just come together in this very difficult way, right? So let's talk about it. First, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm not just some strange Black woman talking about things. I actually am not angry. I love laughing, I love jokes, I like to watch comedy stylings, stand-up comedy of all varieties. This is me pretending to have caught fish. I have never caught a single fish ever in my life. But I have absolutely been on a boat where people caught fish and I drank. So there's that. So this is actually at my brother's wedding in Nicaragua. And then right there I'm pretending to be on the phone, having some fun. Pretending, because I did not touch the phone to my ear. Absolutely not. I have some germ issues. But it kind of looks like I'm holding the phone. And I don't even know if that phone functions. So just to tell you a little bit about myself, I love to, joke around and have fun. And this is, like I said, this conversation is things you would never know about me by virtue of looking at my artwork. I have a cat. If you have my Instagram, you would know I have a cat. So the cat does strange things and gets under the carpet in the kitchen area. I don't understand it. She's a burrower, that's what they say. But she's also an amazing cat companion. This is on the right there, this is my painting rack. So I built it. There's a flat file area and there's also area for me to stack paintings. So she gets up there and I put out the plastic table and I work and she's like, I'm going to sleep, right? So she's a wonderful cat companion. And this is important to me. I'm sharing this with you because I have learned that painters, they say, are very solitary people. So we're in the studio, we're painting, painting. And then when I started making ceramic artwork, I realized how other artists are not that way. And I'm a solitary person, so it's easy to know that I'm a painter. But when I started making ceramic work, it's like, oh, come on, guys, let's mix up some clay. I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? What are they talking about? You're like, oh, they're knocking on my door, And this was actually when I went to go get my, and then degrees, that's something else that we could talk about. But when I went to earn my bachelor's degree, I lived off campus. I was a returning student. I was like 30 years old, right? So I'm like, I'm not hanging out with these kids. That's how I responded to them. So I didn't really engage. I only knew where the library was and the art studios. So when I did that, I didn't have to engage. I would go to class and go home. And that was it. That's all I did. And occasionally go to the bar with my friends. So when I went to earn my master's degree, I stayed in the studio quite often because I had this wonderful space and access to even more space. So I had a designated space at FAU, which is a wonderful thing that they provide to all the MFA students. But I also had access to larger spaces that I didn't have in my own apartment. So now, hopefully, I never do that again. I always want to live in a place where I have large spaces that are designated for me because I don't like sharing. So this is to speak about the cat situation, how important this artist companion is to me, because I still live that way. And these things it can be problematic, emotionally. So it's helpful to have this cat companion when I'm sitting there like, I have feelings. Oh, sorry, that's me. All right. So let's go on and not talk about feelings. So to tell you a little bit about my influences, I've had to search for Black art, like search for it. And before I was even told that I need to search for Black art, I just knew there wasn't any, or there were just a few staples. So when I found, I'm sharing with you a couple of my influences. So Lorna Simpson, very talented artist, very thoughtful woman, and she's not known for this. These works that you see here are from her interrogation series. So they're just small works on paper, relatively so-called simple drawings, one might say. But these works really struck me because they're just quiet and powerful and intense. And I felt something when I saw them. And that's what I intend to do when I'm making, to make people feel what I'm trying to feel and what I am experiencing. And it's difficult to share that if you don't have a certain sense of integrity and thoughtfulness. And research is important. So researching, other artists and how they're doing these things has been important to me. And Lorna Simpson is one of the ones who I really love. She actually does these, she's primarily known for her collage and watercolor, gouache combinations or acrylics that are figurative. But these I found especially important to me. But then I was thinking about why are all the couple of, if you Google Black woman artists, which is what I did, right? So if you Google this, how many names are you gonna get? 10, 15, 20, maybe? And then if you try to make it more specific to African American, you're gonna get fewer. So this is problematic for me. So I made an effort to find contemporaries. So this artist, Jamia Richmond, she's probably younger than me, and she's got a lot of traction now. She's starting to, really show more and more and more in the spaces that are appreciated by the art community. Let's put it that way. So, but I really love her work because she's working in this very expressive way, and she's not only creating figurative work that has this kind of, weight to it, but she's also working with, these inanimate objects that seem to embody some type of, state of being. So I think they're really beautiful. And I've only seen these works on the internet. This is another artist who, so now, again, I'm talking about my influences, right? So this artist was one of the people who came up when I was Googling Black art, right? Now, these are just, and I thought, oh, these are beautiful drawings. They're beautiful drawings, technically wonderful, but also, images of beautiful Black people, right? Or Afrocentric figures. So this is amazing. So I kept finding more and more of her work, and I kept, scrolling through all the images like, wow, wow, wow. She's so skilled. She's not Black, she's white. This is a white woman who lives in Canada. When I learned that, and now when I looked for this work, I was looking for Blackness. And when I found out this was a white woman who lives in Canada, I was heartbroken. I mean, was I heartbroken? No. Yes and no. I was heartbroken because now my relationship to the work was forever changed. Because why are you painting all these Black people? Paint your own people. Paint what you know. Draw what you know. And that's what I was talking about when I was talking about authenticity. Where's your integrity? You have nothing to do with these people. Besides that, they are people, of course. Of course. But that is something. And this is something that influenced me to take the blackness out of my work. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about my work. So in all of my work, I always use imagery that I know. I always work from my own photographs, or actually now strictly from my own photographs I've taken. But previously I would work from images that come from things that are important to me. Okay, so this image of Billie Holiday is just it was a CD, compact disc. I didn't have the actual album, even though I did have a nice collection of albums that I gave to my brother that he summarily has lost, but whatever, that's between me and him. So this image of Billie Holiday it's about how I had this relationship to her music, and I had this CD cover, and from that CD cover I created a painting. Oh, my brother's gonna come up again later. I love him, don't worry. Okay. And this image, this is when I was recently in Tampa. This is gonna be a painting at some point, right? Maybe. So I just collect all these images whenever and wherever I am. So anything you see in my work, it's me, right? But it's not just me, it's other people like me. So I'm gonna show you some earlier works. So before I went to university, I was always painting. And then at some point, I worked at a bank. For a long time, I worked at multiple banks. And I hated it very much. Like, very much. I don't know how much you can express how much you hate something, without sounding like an angry black woman, okay? So I just painted always. I was always painting, but no, I had no formal training, blah, 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 right? So this face is Billie Holiday. It's from that CD cover. So my brother, he said to me once, so my brother, he's an artist as well, but he's a silversmith, very talented and skilled. He said, oh, you need to go on the road with me. We need to go on the road with, you got some good paintings. I said, number one, I'm not going on the road with you ever. So there's that, because I don't like all of that, traveling about, whatnot. I'm not doing that. So no, that's the answer. And he's like, okay, well look, you can give me some paintings and then I can take them with me and then sell them. I was like, okay, I mean, that sounds like a good idea. And he's like, this is what I need you to paint. I need you to paint some stuff people will buy. I said, oh no, that was my problem. I need you to paint some stuff people will buy. And it didn't seem like I was doing that, and I wasn't. So I said, okay. So I said, how about this? He said, paint some singers, some jazz artists, and I'll paint somebody playing the piano, paint a processional, do some of these things. I said, okay, all right, I got you. I'm gonna do it. So I painted this Billie Holiday, painted it. And then he's like, that's amazing. They're gonna buy that. I said, great. And then I was in my studio, I was like, I hate this painting, right? I hate this painting. And then I painted over it, and this is the painting that came out of it, right? And it's about how we do things that we don't want to do. We're people who we don't want to be because someone told us how to be. So I actually had painted the whole thing. It was all blue, and it was like something someone would buy, but I just couldn't. So I painted this thing, right? He sold it to somebody. Yeah, but then I'm like, I'm not putting my energy into this. Let me just scrabble something on here. I'm not gonna love that thing. There's no way I'm gonna love this thing. Oh, and this was back in the day when I used to put my name on things. I thought I was special, So that's how you can tell that it's before I went to college. My name is on it, the front. And I said, what? It's interrupting the image, so what is this about? This one though, this is where I started looking to make work that is about the things that interest me, right? And these are the Orisha, it's an abstraction. And this is where I started first getting into abstractions. So the Orisha is Afrocentric spirituality. So these are kind of like goddesses, you might say. So this is Oshun, Oya, and Yemoya, right? So you don't know. If you don't know, you don't know. But you could Google it, or we could talk about it later. So I started doing things like that were more true to who I am. Like prior to this, I had made like a man, woman, child thing. I'm like, what? Doesn't make sense, right? But someone bought that thing. I'm like, why would you buy this? But why would I make it? So my grandmother was about to die, or she was going down real fast. And at the time I lived in Atlanta, my mother asked me to come home and help her because she thought I didn't have a job because I was a bartender. So it's like not having a job basically in her mind, which was true because I left, right? And I went home and I helped with my grandmother. So when I was up north, I was living in Atlanta, which is just gay, you know. It's not just gay, there's other things happening. But I could be free because my family wasn't there. And the, LGBTQ community is, rich, and there's a variety of people who are out living their lives. And, of course, there's still violence that happens, but there's this certain feeling of being safe because you have numbers. So in Atlanta, I had that. And my brother who lived in Atlanta with me, he knew I was a lesbian, but I hadn't come out to my family, my parents. And my father had told the same brother I'm talking about, my father had told him that if he were not Muslim, which is I was raised to be a Muslim, even though our family, we were always trained, very well trained, to know all religions. And we would have to choose Islam. Now, I have many siblings, and only 1 out of 8 has chosen Islam. But that's because they trained us to know and search and choose, which might be one of the things they regret, because here we are, right? So my father said he would disown my brother if he were not a Muslim. Now, I'm going home, and I know I'm done when I get there. So this is my last time. I'm over it. I'm clearly not a Muslim. And now if I'm going to tell them I'm gay, that's definitely not going to fly. So I had this horrendous dream of the Khalifa who named me. He came to, it was obviously, you can determine how you feel about dreams, but the Muslims say dreams are either a manifestation of what might happen in the future, or what might happen in the past, or, like Freud might say, your fears and passions, right? So all of that, who knows which part of that is this, but the Khalifa came to me and he said, you can't be here. So, and there's more to it than that. It was a very vivid dream. And when I woke, I was like, I can't be here. And it kind of invalidated my whole existence, my personal dream, right? So this is tears, right? That's the next day I painted that painting, right? These are my tears, right? But my sister said it looks like sperm. I'm like, okay. So she's vulgar, So, and the other is tears and portals. So this is when you first see the portals. It's the tears, it's all this sadness, and then how do you get out of it or just avoid it for a moment? And then this painting is what came after that. This is a relatively massive painting. I kind of miss it. I sold it to someone who I don't, but I have a picture of it here. It was boxes and boobs. That's what it's about, boxes and boobs, right? Boxes and boobs. So you put us in a box, but what about our boobs? So that's what this painting is about. And I actually saw this. So a lot of my work is very, it happens in a very organic fashion. So not only am I taking pictures that I'm riding down the street and I tell a friend, oh, stop, 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 if I'm not driving, which normally I like to drive, control issues. Then I might see some architectural form that I find, compelling, and I take a picture. And then I take it home and say how am I going to integrate it into this space, or how I'm going to make space be integrated into this architectural structure. So I had this canvas, and at the time, this is like $1 million canvas because it's relatively large, like 60-inch canvas. I'm like, oh, this is canvas. What do I want to do with this? And I'm laying in the bed, and I see this shadow on the wall, and this shadow, I saw this face, and I felt like it was like this, like goddess figure. I said, oh snap! Look at that lady. That lady is looking at me and she's telling me to like be better or be stronger or just live my life. So then I was like, oh my goodness, boxes and boobs. And I just started making boxes and boobs, right? And you see, this is where I start like really getting into using this symbolic imagery, like the battle axe, the women, this is I didn't know this at the time, but the battle axe is a symbol that the lesbians use. I had no idea. Because they're like, oh, that's the gay. I said, oh, I didn't know that. But makes sense, eh? All right, so then I started doing this with a little more intention, using symbols. Okay, if I got a battle axe in there, and I didn't even know anything about that, because I was thinking about like fighting, and fighting for freedom, just to be. And this is the scratching that you see in my current works, but it's just a little more quiet because I was bottled up, So in this one, this infinity symbol, and it's 2 female figures, and then the triangle. So I started like Googling all this, what's the gay stuff, right? So the triangle, but then water for fluidity, these things. So on the right side, these symbols that are in there, the circular form, it represents all encompassing, and this is a Adinkra symbol. So all the symbols in the image on the right are Adinkra symbols. The circular form means all encompassing. That means nothing is left out. Everything is relevant and everything is working together. And then this other grouping of symbols, together it means fire woman, and I guess I imagine myself to be one of those. All right, so then I kind of got less angry because I came out and my family was like, duh. No, like for real. They said, duh. My sister cried because she said, and I was like, what? I didn't know she cried because I was babysitting her son for her at her home. And she told me that, like, she was going out partying, right? So I'm babysitting, and I love my nephew. It's a pleasure. Unless he does something inappropriate, then it's not a pleasure. But when she's leaving, I said, hey, I got something to tell you, And this, I'm back in town. Now I have something to tell everybody, right? And there's a lot of us. So I gotta, make my rounds. So I said, I got something to tell you. She says, okay, well, come on, going out to the bar. I said, okay, I'm gay, so have fun. Yeah, enjoy yourself. And she was like, what? How you gonna tell me that? She said, what? And I said, don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. Because I'm gonna tell everybody. She was like, what? What? I have to tell somebody. I said, no. I'm gonna tell everybody. I said, no. I have to tell somebody. I said, but don't. She said, okay. She goes, didn't know that she went, and that night at the bar, she's crying for me because she doesn't know what's gonna happen to me. And she doesn't know what difficulty is gonna come to my life for this reason. Then the next day my sister comes, my other sister, the oldest, she's like, hey, Khaulah. I'm saying, what's up? She's like, you know I love you. I said, yes, of course. I love you too. Handled, right? She's like, no, I love you. I said, okay, yes. And remember, I love you too. But give me a hug though. Oh, what? Okay, now Amtul, I spilled her name. Amtul spilled the beans, obviously. She told my sister. So now once you tell her something, everybody knows everything. So at the end of the day, it was not a big deal. And I'm very glad for that because that's not always the case for people who, come out to their families. So this was kind of a response to that. And this figure, she doesn't exist. I wrote this strange long poem and I had a big fat journal, write all these things that are kind of like poems. And there's a story I wrote in my journal, which I originally went to university to be a creative writer, and then I realized I couldn't be a creative writer because I don't like editing. Absolutely not. And they said, well, I don't want any feedback, it's a masterpiece. So no. But with painting, I was like, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? So and with all my art making, I want feedback. Give me your criticism. Don't just tell me you like it. What do you like about it? So that is a clear expression of the fact that I could not be a writer because this is the perfect word choice, right? So anyway, I had written this little tale about this woman who she goes to the ocean and she goes there alone. It's not a Virginia Woolf type of story, but she goes there alone and she takes her clothes off. She's free, she's naked, and no one is going to harm her. But before that, she shaved her head and she had this long, beautiful hair. It's basically my story, right? So I used to have this really long hair and it was ridiculous. Too much work. So I had all this hair and then I kept cutting it shorter. And at some point, I was like, okay, you're gay, Khaulah. That's what people thought. And it's because what? That means I have no care for men desiring long hair. But there are men who desire all variety of women. But anyway, it was true, I was gay. So I wrote this tale about a woman who shaves her head and she smokes cigarettes and she drinks and she's got these masculine qualities, but she does not care. She lives her life. And then when she goes to the water after, she's been cast out of the community, that's when, her wings, come. So then I started making work with naked ladies. But the nudes are about not nudity, it's about freedom. So these naked women, and I pretty much at the time had to just use my own body and then try to modify it a little bit because I didn't have a lover. So, and I surely didn't have any money to pay a model. So, these are earlier works in acrylic that I did, and this is before I learned and started dishing out the money to, take it to the next level for oil materials and better materials. I was making my own canvas from drop cloth, and wrapping on poorly made stretchers. Well, no, my craftsmanship is actually pretty good, but I didn't have a saw to, run the proper cuts. So, these works, I do not have them anymore. They're out in the world, but I have fond memories of them. But you'll see the development here. So that is all before I went to university. So, and this is something I would love to hope everyone will understand, that I don't think you need to go to university. You can take a couple of classes here and there, but it is important to have some variety of formal education because, or to, it would be great to be an apprentice. Well, how you gonna pay your rent as an apprentice? But anyway, university. So this is when I started working with oils, and I just learned to love it, and I never could paint with acrylic ever again because I'm like, what? Why would I do that? And then people said they have open acrylics. Why wouldn't I just use oil then? And there's reasons, I understand the logic around it, but I love the smell of the material. I love how like luscious and buttery it is, and I like rolling it around on the palette. It's just such a great pleasure. I even like cleaning it up, and then it's on me, and I like, ooh, even though it's toxic. Ooh. I seem to like toxic things. But these are the orisha. This is where you get the orisha after I, said, what? They need to be free. And if you recall the more abstract one where it was the red figures, this one is like, no, the orisha are not hiding. They are out here, they're free, they're naked, they're in conversation, and that's freedom, they're safe, right? So these are the orisha, same 3. And then got a lover, so that helped. And so she was, very willing to be a model, and she was very lazy. So she was a writer, so she would either be furiously writing or lazing around eating cake, literally, like actual whole cakes. But so she would model for me, and again, I would take photos of her because as lazy as she was, she couldn't hold still. So I would take photos of her, and like this end table, that was my grandmother's end table. Not the one grandmother, the other grandmother. But that was my grandmother Vivian, her end table. This chair was a dear friend of mine. Her aunt, who was a lesbian, had a pair of chairs like this. And then when she moved down to Florida, she brought them with her. So, this is a, relatively, special space, but you don't exactly know that unless you know, right? And this is when I first started to abstract space after, my going to university and them telling you this is how things work, this is how things go, right? Same thing, but at this point I'm really trying to model the flesh in like a relatively realistic way and kind of like make it sexy, I'm trying to make it sexy right here. Same deal. So this is my thesis work from my BFA. I really enjoyed making these pieces, but something about this work that I'd like for you to understand is that I didn't paint the face, right? And that's why I wanted to show you these two, because the figure, as free as she is, she won't look you in the eye. Now, boom, bow. Now she's looking at you, and she's in charge. She's like, oh, it's like a challenge woman. But she's not even challenging you. She's sitting there, and she's free, right? And it's about her. So now the space kind of like falls away. So this is like these transitions I'm going through. So I spent all this time painting, the chairs. And let me paint this little sliver of chair. Let me get the chair, model the chair. And then I said, no, well, it's not about the chair. Even though I loved painting those chairs. I loved it. It was a pleasure. I said, let me step back and make it what it's really about, this free woman. So that's what I did there. And then it became a concern for me because the free woman in my MFA program, people kept looking at, to be quite, frank, her titties. Why do you keep looking at her body? Why are you obsessed with her body? And they're just consuming her body. And this really disturbed me, and I didn't like it. And then I had some guy say to me, oh, like, oh man, that's beautiful. He was talking about a different painting. That's beautiful, oh man. I said, ew, I didn't like it. I didn't like him looking at her, and I didn't want him to have access to her. So this is where I first start to remove the figure from the painting. So she's got this kind of ghost-like quality, and I didn't work them up, the figure, as much. And then I even put, it's difficult to see in this image, but there are little like ghosts in the background. Yeah. So I didn't want her to look like a real woman. I wanted to like flatten her down, but then make the chair more prominent, right? Even though she's still there and free and safe and blah, 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 blah. But at some point it just wasn't working. So I'm like, now I'm painting I paint the whole figure, and then I'm painting completely over the figure. So this is an expression of all of this labor. So I paint completely over I paint the woman up and then paint her away, right? So that's where I took it next. And now, then I say, you know what, why am I spending all this time painting her? Why not just not paint her? And actually my advisor said, you're doing the most. Like, you're overworking yourself. You're doing more than you need to do. And I'm like, well, that's what we do. She's like, but no. Like, you just spent however much time painting this lady, and then you paint it right over. I said, okay, you have a good point, right? So then I started painting this silhouette, but then I said, oh man, how can I do more? Right? So I paint, so this is the same painting. It was supposed to be complete. And then afterward, I said, maybe it's not. So this is how I started fragmenting space and making these intersections between figure and space. Same painting on either side. It's done on both sides, right? But the truth is on the right. And then you still have that labor underneath, and some of it you cannot see. And I still am doing that. So whether or not you see it is not exactly relevant, but that it happened is important. And if you look close, you will see it. And that's what's important. Same situation. So this is another example of one of the paintings I had created. And here the clothing is kind of like a shield of sorts. So, yes. Same conversation. Now those two pieces, the finished side, this is them hanging at Mocha, and then this woman is scratching her head. I think it's so perfect. She's scratching her head. She's like, what in the heck is going on here? And when I saw that, I took the picture. And I went over and asked, do you mind if I keep this picture? If you do, then I'll delete it. She said, that's fine. And then we had a conversation. She's like, I just don't know what's going on here. And I like that. That's what I want. I want you to not know what's going on and look closer and say something is going on. And that's kind of what's happening in the world, a lot, in the nation and, worldwide. What is going on? It's scratching your head, right? So I went from creating these kind of intimate pieces where now you go from the woman is looking away to the woman is looking in your face, and she's in her own safe places, to like she's comfortable, she's chilling, right? These are just different examples of earlier works. So this is talking about abstraction of space, right? So in the piece on the left, you really only know that that's probably a light switch back there. But what is that that's pushing her back? Or is she pushing that forward? What is the figure doing? And in that one, she doesn't have her head, right? So it's this decapitated figure. And I didn't want that anymore. So then now here we see this figure. Now the space is even more abstracted. But she's not playing. She's looking at you and dare you challenge who she is, right? So this is when I started getting into this excessive mark making, if you will. This is where the scratching really started to come. So those are abstracted chili peppers that are kind of floating around her body. And I think of these as like a cancer. And my lover at the time had cancer. And I think about cancerous cells and how those masses grow and they mutate. And this is kind of how work happens. And this is how it's difficult to solve certain problems because the problem keeps changing. Okay, so that's where I first started with that mark making. And this is here is relatively difficult to see, but there are these mini green lines there, and abstracting the space even more and thinking more about the portals, ways to get out of the space you're in, or bring people into the space you're in, or join a new space, not because you're trying to escape a space, but grow. And then, so this is my first works on paper that I had never worked with paper before because of, I don't know, I just thought I'm a painter or something, so I just supposed to paint on canvas. So then I came into a large mass of paper. So this is my first works on paper, and there was this roll of photo paper. That's like, oh yes, I don't know anything about this photo paper, but I'm gonna paint on it. And the photo paper, it has this adhesive on it. It's like so when you put it through, it can burn the image. So I didn't know that painting on it with gouache would make that come to life. And it did. And I was like, whoa. I came back one day and it was all like bubbled up and moved around. And it was so fun to say, what can I do with this? But something else that happened that day is that I had a piece of plastic on there. And then when I came back, I was like, oh man, what happened here? I pulled the plastic off, and then it had these shapes. So some of the shapes you're seeing here where in the center, like on the right, there might be a close up, but this is when I'm doing it now with intention. So some of the earlier shapes you would see here in that open space are from plastic on there, and then I would start to shape the plastic, and now I'm doing it with intention because I think it is visually pleasing. Oh, and this is where the portals start getting more and more intense, right? So now more portals, and I want you to be clear that it's a window or a door. And now the figure is there, but I'm using furniture more as figure. So this is when I first started moving away and giving the furniture, these inanimate objects, giving them that, trying to see how to give them that weight. So these are some studies I did. So I started just doing lots of studies of furniture. And like, how does this chair look like it's sad? How does it look mad? How does it look hurt? How do you give it that, weight? So I just started doing all these chair studies. And everywhere I go, I'm just taking pictures of chairs. And so this lounge is actually at a museum. And then, thinking about how it interacts with space and what that says about it, and what is its personality, determined by its color or how light is, interacting with it. Okay, so now I'm like adjusting these chairs, like in my studio, like. So these two, they are related, and now I'm trying to really not just going around taking pictures like that chair looks dilapidated, it's over there by a dumpster, Now let me do this with intention. So I'm thinking about a relationship and how would that relationship look with these two chairs. Okay, so this is a relationship between two people, whether it could be romantic, whatever, right? There is an actual story to this, but you know, it's a relationship between two people. And it's how relationships sometimes go. And it's actually recently just happened to me with a friend who disappointed me greatly today. And you know, a couple days ago as well. But it was a new friend, don't worry. So a new friend, for example, this could be a new friend who, it's like you're grounded, you're there, you're in, if you read it like a book, you know, or like a sentence, left to right, you know, this is the beginning of a relationship. You're grounded and you've got this weight to you and yes, you're there. But then as time progresses and space, that convoluted space is essentially time. So as time progresses, that weight you feel may have been relevant, might not be, and then maybe that release is light. But you can interpret this however you like, of course. This is just a close-up of that beginning stage, right? Honeymoon. So this is important because I do want to show you how important it is to make the layers. So I start with very thin layers of oil, and then I start building it up, and I always create a sketch first. But as I start painting, that can change, which I love to allow myself that space to, you know, adjust as needed. So this one, it was like very intense for me to create this work. So, you know, you have the stool on the left, and now they're functioning as human beings, right? This anthropomorphized chair with the stool on top of it. So the title of this piece is When She Lifts Me Up, I'm Upside Down. Right? And maybe I should title things untitled and you wouldn't know I'm a business, right? So anyway, and then you have those doors there. So all this symbolic imagery is, you know, I'm really working it out. But then I'm thinking like, dang, you know, I'm kind of putting a lot of my business out here. You know? So, and it's something that I've had to work at, being vulnerable. I've had to work very hard to be vulnerable because I was raised to not be. And once my mother told me this not too long ago, a couple years ago, and it was really hurtful to hear this. And she apologized, but you know. So my mother said to me, she always asked me this every couple of years, is there anything I could have done to be a better mother? I'm like, I mean, what do you want, lady? Like what? You know? And then I said, I mean, you know, I wish we had learned to swim. One time I said that and she's like, okay, got it. She said, I'm gonna pay for your swimming lessons. I'm like, okay, I'll be all right, you know? And then this one time, this was the last time she asked me, she said the same question, you know, what could I have done to be a better mother? And I was like, you know, let me answer this with sincerity today. It would have been nice to have had more affection. And she said, oh, well, I didn't know how to love you. And I was like, you didn't know how to love your kids? I was like, what? You didn't know how to love your kids? And she's like, I said, please clarify, right? She said, I did not know how to love you in particular. You. And I'm like, wait. You mean, wait. You mean the girls? Like, what? No, she said, no. You in particular, I did not know how to love you. And that was like really hurtful. And I said, what? Why? She said, I just didn't understand you. I said, well, what? Okay. She said, so I just avoided you. This is blowing my mind, right? She said, I avoided you because you in particular, of all of my children, even though I got a really strange brother, I have a brother who's really strange, you know. I hope he doesn't hear this, but he knows he's strange. But I still love him. And I know how to love him because I listened to him. But she just didn't know how to do it. And that was devastating to me. This is, you know, if I know I'm not gonna have affection from my mother, and my father is not there, and my sister, who was a mother figure, left when I was 16, when she was 16, you know, we're on our own. I am particularly on my own. So I've gained a special skill for not being vulnerable. But in these works, I'm being very vulnerable by sharing through chairs, you know, my so-called pain, right? So in this one, this is a situation where a lover who I was not vulnerable with, she wasn't there when I was, right? And these works, I said, I'm telling all of my business. I need to change this up because people were telling me, oh my goodness, these are so painful. This is painful. And then the titles were giving it away too, right? So the title of this piece is She on Her High Horse, I'm Over Here, right? So I was like, oh, okay. Someone might suspect something's up here, right? So this is my thesis work, continuing in that conversation, using chairs to function as individuals. And this is where space now is starting to really get like, you know, jazzing it up. But I still love, I love details. I love fine details. I love like making tiny little marks. But then I love making splashes. So there's this certain balance I need to keep. Otherwise, I'm just going to float away maybe. But I have to sometimes take a moment and like ground myself in the tiny details. So all those little, you know, rivets and getting in there on those tiny wheels is just like, it's calming for me. And this is an image of the that exhibition, so you can see the scale of the pieces. And then, kind of for fun, I started making ceramics, but the ceramics started informing my painting, you know, and the painting informed the ceramics. And now that I do a lot more drawing, all of it's informing everything, you know. It's like, oh, like I better not start welding, which I have done some welding. I have done some welding, but it was, guess what, terrible. So I was like, I failed. Let's just keep it moving. And plus, access. That's another thing. I don't have access to just be going around welding all over town. So I can make ceramics and sneak around and get it fired, you know. This is details of these ceramics that are here there. So it's just, this is that detail thing I like to do, just making little tiny marks and getting intimate with the process and with the material. So this is where you're really starting to see the red door come up. So this red door is very important to me, and it's about sacrifice. So, you know, it's every religious story, every religious history tells you about sacrifice. You put the blood of the lamb on the door, and this is going to keep your home safe and your firstborn. You know the tales, right? So this is because I've been relatively transient in my life. The red door has been very important to me because and then now if I live at a condo, I can't paint the door red, you know? So, you know, I have to have my own red door, and the sacrifice that I'm making every day is my red door, you know? So this symbol, doors, gates, windows, it's all about access and about, you know, again, bringing it back to this Black woman's labor. Like, why can't I just relax? you know. And then when I think I have an opportunity to relax, I think, what did I not do, you know? Or I should have done more, right? So this piece is one, and this is in New Orleans. Oh, that gate was in New Orleans, that photo. That photo was in Panama. And in between is abstraction of space. But this painting is an expression of a place for us to be free. So you enter the gate, and the structures I take images of, they are always abandoned spaces. Well, primarily, you know, abandoned spaces. So these abandoned spaces, these are the spaces where the abandoned can go. And when they come together, they're better for being in a space of loving community. So the abandoned in the abandoned space can thrive, but they need that gate. They need some safety. They need that, this is the structure in Panama, but they need that, you know. They cannot thrive without that protection, right? And the protection is all the work we do, you know. It's not literal, it's a metaphorical gate, right? I mean, we know that, right? Okay. So this is a newer piece, a relatively new piece, I think last year. This is roofing felt that I painted front and back with exterior enamel. I had to paint it multiple times. Roofing felt, it's what goes under your tiles, your shingles, whatever. But without it, your roof is compromised. So the roofing felt, I chose this material because it's kind of like the black woman in the world, you know. It goes unseen, but you have to have this. You need, the black woman starts all the movements, right? The black woman, you know, we don't play because we cannot. We do not have time to play, you know. We don't have that privilege. So we have to keep working, working, working. So this is graphite and scratching. So I scratched this thing, and it's very, very long. It's 4 times my height. So I measured, you know, you don't need to know all that. So it's 4 times my height. That's an expression of we have to do 4 times the work. You have to multiple times the work that others have to do. So, you know, all these decisions I'm making are very specific. So I scratched into it with multiple different variety of tools. But then after that, I went on top of that and drew with graphite just all these hatch marks. So it's got this very textural quality. Okay, so now this brings us to today. This exhibition just came down, not for sale, not today, and it's all about our black bodies. But again, quite specifically, black women. And not to say that these concerns are exclusive to black women, absolutely not. But that's where I'm coming from when I'm talking about it right now. I might talk about it differently tomorrow, but that's what I'm talking about right now. So it's about the disenfranchised. And, you know, it's about you can't, but you cannot buy us, our imagery, our bodies, our, you know, our intellectual content. So for this exhibition, oh, and this is a little, you know, behind the scenes. So I got this door and I had to paint it multiple times. The reason I wanted to share this with you is because I collected this. So it's kind of like the abandoned house, the abandoned structure. So I collected this from FAU theater, threw it out in the dumpster. I was like, this is a good door, you know? Why would they throw us away? Because they don't care. And they have access to throwing things away. And I was like, I need that door because where's my door, you know? So I took this door and I painted it. And I had to paint it like 5 times. I was like, what the heck? Why won't this door receive this paint? And the reason I wanted to share this image with you is because that is what it is, that I was talking about, the sacrifice. just like, oh my goodness. And then I come outside and check it and like, okay, it's still streaky, needs another, like, oh gosh. So that's an expression of the labor. So these are just a couple of installation images. And like I said, I wanted to share with you something you won't see, because this you won't see anymore, right? So this drawing is one that can change over time, and any curator might say, I want to separate it, or I want it to be all on one line. So this drawing is the only piece in that exhibition that is mutable. Everything else is in frames, relatively cheap frames, trust me. But I think it looks nice. So this drawing, and it's floating it's just attached by magnets. That drawing is important to me because it's about how the piece can be manipulated with consent, but it's still being manipulated, and it's not how it was intended to be. Right? So right now, I had a curator, Tayina Deravile. She was awesome, and she arranged that piece. And when I saw the piece arranged, she was like laying it down on the floor, and I was like, whoa, okay, you're making some very interesting decisions, because it's nothing like the piece. But that's the point, so I didn't realize how resistant I would be to that alteration. But it's like how I resisted my own self being altered, but you can't avoid it. So that's a special piece to me. And there's the red door that I had painted, And so the drawings on the back there on the wall that are kind of curled up like that, they are rubbings from that long piece. So this is labor on top of labor on top of labor. So I did all the scratching to make it this, textural piece. And then I rolled out a whole bunch of paper, and then I rubbed graphite. So those are graphite rubbings that are just impressions from that drawing. And then the pieces on the floor, I don't know if I have a better image. No, I don't. So the pieces on the floor, this is a tabletop. I actually was going to have a whole table, but anyway, the space suggested tabletop. But the tabletop, who I appreciate someone let me borrow that, it's like black women having a seat at the table. So what I did is I invited, and this is, again, not today, not for sale, not today. So what I did is invited black women to consent to sharing their bodies. And if they say no, then, they just won't participate, because they get to choose. So that's the first element. If they say yes, because of visual art exhibition, you gotta say yes, or else you're not participating. So if they say yes, the next element is they can write whatever they want about their experience of scratching at life. The next level is, if they would like, they can create audio element of their, read their, whatever they've written, or any audio about their scratching at life. So the reason I put this in here, this is an earlier piece. The reason I put this here is to express how this was important for me in my art practice, to say, hold up, I'm doing to these women what I don't want done to me. So this was a woman I knew one time, right? And she agreed to model. And this actual image, this picture, I remember it very well. I said, well, turn like this. I said, okay, lean more. Okay, put your hand down. Turn it around like this. I said, oh, like those veins. I kept telling her what to do with her body. And, looking back at this, and she said, look, this doesn't even make sense. What you're telling me to do does not make sense. And I was like, but it's gonna look sexy. She's like, what? doesn't even make sense. And I said, but obviously your body can do it. And her body did do it because I asked her to do it. So I wanted to do something for women that they strictly chose to do. So these are the pieces that came out of that. 14 women participated, and they all chose what they wanted to do. And then it's interesting, one of the women early on, she said, oh, of course, obviously, of course I'll do it. I said, okay, great. And I was like, well, what you want to do? Think about it. And she said, well, why don't you do me last? And then whatever you need, I'll give you. I said, what? No, that's not the point of the project. The whole point, it's not about me, it's about you choosing, number one, to share. And don't share because you think I need something. And that is something that I'm hoping that we can do better about. Always doing something because we think someone else needs us to. And, really honoring what you want and who you are, what you want to do with your body, with your intellectual content. You might not want to share it, So of the 14 women, 8 wrote something, and then they were like, well, what do I have to write? I said, whatever you want, and only if you want to. And then the women who, there were 4 who chose to create a recording. And the next slide is one of those. And it's the woman who, this central foot area.
Sometimes when I say I'm tired, I mean I'm upset or frustrated or hurting. Other times I'll say, I'm tired, but I really mean that I need help or that I desire a little tenderness. I won't bore you with all the details. I've gotten used to rubbing my own feet.
You gotta rub your own feet. Okay, this is just an installation of the ceramics. This is how it's transitioned over time. And actually, I'm installing over at, if you're one to go a little bit south, at Art Serve on Thursday, there will be an opening where I'm installing something similar to this, but a little different. It transitions when it moves, and I use all these red doors, and then it's this three-dimensional iteration of the paintings. This is a close-up of that, and this is where I'm really pushing the ladders as portals as well. But this gilded ladder is it's an illusion, and it's clearly compromised. And this is the first time I actually used the greenware. Normally I fire them, but I wanted to try out looking at the fragility of the door, and a couple of them did break, and then you can see the dust there. So I'm contemplating how I feel about that. So this is just a few more images from the works that are in that exhibition. And this is where now we're seeing that I'm removing all of I don't even have chairs anymore, right? But not to say that you won't see them. But there are other structures. Okay, this is an example of one of the drawings. And this is collage. Again, I told you I use my own images. So this is my personal studio, which is my home as well. So I just pulled out all these collage elements, and the values are all created by thousands of tiny little hatching, right? And in this piece, the only cross-hatching I did was in the shadows under the collage. So it's just like much, much labor. And a friend of mine said, Khaulah, why don't you just have someone do it for you? Like, he said this, he's a professional artist, and he's amazing too, great guy. But he's like, why are you doing all this? I said, that's the point. So this I just wanted to show you, it's a little distorted. I just wanted to show you a little bit about process. So this is the piece that or it's actually a portion of the piece that you'll see at ArtServe. I'm installing that tomorrow, and it opens on Thursday. So this is just to show you a little bit about my process. I always make a drawing first, and in some cases, I figure out the color scheme first. Sometimes I don't, but usually I do. So this is just a little process piece, right? I do all this dimensions and all this, and there's little collage elements in there, probably overworking the sketch, but it makes sense to me. And this is the closing image. This piece, the reason I wanted to close with this is because it talks about how you are flayed. That's the title of the piece. And being flayed is a very violent, obviously, thing, you know. Cutting someone's flesh off, you know, that's crazy. But this piece is about that. And I might seem to be a very pessimistic person, but I feel like maybe I'm like a realist, you know? And like in the beginning, I showed you I like to laugh and have fun and make jokes. And this is what we do when we know that there's tomorrow coming, you know? And we don't know what tomorrow's gonna bring. We laugh, right? So after all that, after all of the things you go through, at the end of the day, there's a certain beauty in, there's still beauty there. And I just want to be sure that you understand that I actually believe that after all of the things, there is beauty there. And it's because of all of the layers. It's because of all the layers and pushing through. So that's it.